Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Adam Balderstone for another episode of Bedrock and Balderstone to talk about I, Claudius. We're going to talk about episode 10, Fool's Luck. This is the last three episodes of I, Claudius, and these are the Claudius episodes. So these are the ones that are based on the second book in the I, Claudius series. And so, Adam, before we get into it, I do want to say, people should go out and check out The House of Paper Shadows, which is a book that I put out for Wandering Heroes of Ogregate. It's available on RPG Now. It's available in print. It's a really great Halloween adventure, and I think people who listen to this channel will probably like it. And also the episode that we watched, it's essentially about Claudius becoming emperor and the machinations of his wife Messalina, who we slowly learn is not such a good person. And so there's other stuff that's going on. We'll get into it. But Adam, what was your reaction to this episode?
It's an interesting episode because there's a lot of things that are echoes to things that happened earlier. I mean, in some ways you could say it's repeating itself, but it repeats itself in ways that have different connotations. I mean, we had the whole thing with Messalina making the accusation, which, we saw earlier a similar thing happen in Augustus, bought it, even though it wasn't true. And here we have Claudius buying it. It's kind of interesting because, it's when it happened the first time around, it was Claudius's best friends who he would never doubt, being accused. And here we have Claudius doing the exact same thing.
And the guy even looks a lot like his friend. He looks a lot. He kind of resembles Posthumus a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And in fact, and it's Appius Solanus is the guy who gets framed by Messalina. He even says we've all seen this play before. Don't make us sit through it again.
Exactly.
And
you're right. They do pretty much lampshade it right there.
Well, and what's interesting to me about that character is we've been talking about how there are no more lions in Rome, and he's the last lion that we forgot about, who's been hidden away in Spain as governor all this time. And he comes back and he gives this big speech about how he visited a dying friend, and the friend said, alas, I've been summoned to Rome. And the point of the story is being summoned to Rome has become a euphemism for I'm dying. And so he uses that to say, let's never allow that to happen again. Let's embrace a republic. And it's at that moment when Claudius is announced as having been declared emperor by the Praetorian Guard. And so right off the bat, this guy, he's kind of enemies of Claudius in a way from the outset, but then Claudius ends up bringing him into the fold. And initially he, it seems like he might be won over, but then, Messalina's dealings and it's like you say, it all kind of echoes the stuff that happened before. And so I guess we could probably talk about it scene by scene. And I guess so just to sort of get this part out of the way, there is the whole portion of the episode where Claudius is reluctant to even be emperor, and they have to convince him to accept the role. And it's kind of interesting having him deal with the Praetorian Guard, and the Praetorians just kind of, it's just a very practical thing. They have this, they have 4,000 men who need to be employed, and if they're disbanded, they'll just be unleashed on the city doing God knows what. And so that's really the driving force that gets him on the throne in the first place. And then he has to persuade the senators that he's not half-witted, that he's capable of ruling, and through this he's being advised by Herod, who returns at the crucial moment to advise him, and then remains there until the end of the or 3/4 of the way through the episode, and departs with giving him some useful advice. But he persuades the Senate, and then we flash forward a year, and this is when we sort of get into the meat of the story of this episode, where he's showing his newborn child to the people of Rome, and Messalina immediately says, she wants a wet nurse, and she starts talking about all the things that she's done for him, and he, and it's a very impressive list. She's clearly an intelligent person, but then she says to him, "I want to be, do you find me useful as Livia was to Augustus?" And he gets this look in his eyes, like you were saying. He's just kind of
well, once again, it is going back to the echoing the past thing. It's like Messalina's role model is Livia, and she is no Livia, but she really works hard at trying to be the new Livia in her own way.
It's funny because in many ways she's more despicable than Livia, but she's just not as competent, and she's not driven by nearly as lofty ideals as Livia seems to be. Like Livia at least is either motivated by a selfish interest in her family line, or if you're being generous, out of an interest in preserving the unity of Rome. But Messalina's the only motivation we really see is her desire to be with this guy that she fell in love with when she was a child. It's not the sort of thing that Livia would have ever done.
Yeah, exactly. You can't. It's debatable how admirable anything Livia did was, but this is just really, really weak. It's just kind of embarrassing when you look at it.
And what we discover is the man who she was in love with was Appius Silanus. And so she it's a pretty brilliant maneuver. She does all this stuff in order to get Appius Silanus married to her mother so that she can be in like a room next to her, because she lays all the groundwork exquisitely. She tells Claudius that she wants to sleep in a separate room because she doesn't want to be tempted and have another child with him so soon. And then she basically sets it up so that she can have access to this guy. But then when she propositions him, and she does it in a way that really paints Claudius in a bad light, he rebuffs her very sternly, and she just flies off the deep end. Like she pulls a sort of "do you know who I am" type thing. And also it's important to remember, I think Messalina is supposed to be quite young.
Yes, I was about to say, I don't think they've mentioned her age in the previous episode, but her age gets brought up here, and I can't remember. She's like a teenager, and it's like it explains so much about her behavior in this episode. It's like because the actress reads older than the age they give, but it's like when you think about someone who's genuinely the age she is, it's like okay, I get it.
And also, before any of this happens, he does get warned by Herod, who's going to depart. Herod, he and Messalina are having some kind of dinner together, and when Messalina leaves, he says to Claudius, "Trust no one, not your wife, not your kid, not your friend, not your most trusted freeman." And Claudius looks at him and says, "Not even you." And we kind of know that that's going to lead to something down the line, because Herod has a look in his eye that is ominous. But at least at this moment, it feels like he's trying to give Claudius some real advice.
Definitely.
And so anyways, what all this leads to is Appius Silanus, because he thinks that Messalina is doing all of this at the direction of Claudius, who she's said to Appius is is just a degenerate like Tiberius, basically, and that he's trying to arrange this all for his own amusement, essentially. Appius Silanus tries to kill him when they're looking at plans, I think, to rebuild Ostia Harbor or something. Or to build up Ostia Harbor. There's plans to make it a proper harbor, and Appius Silanus tries to assassinate him, and it's probably one of the sloppier scenes, in my opinion, in the show, when Claudius just kind of points backwards, and that's what deflects the dagger at the last moment.
It's not great fight choreography. No.
It's very 70s. It was passable in the 70s for sure, but it's up there with the thing where the guy puts up his arm and punches the guy who's got the gun and runs away. It's that kind of fight choreography. But this is, and then Appius Silanus says to Claudius, like Claudius is like, why? I let you marry this beautiful woman. I brought you to the palace. I've treated you so well. And he's just like tyrant. He is he's furious at Claudius. And this is the scene where he basically delivers the line I was talking about. We've seen this play before, but he accuses Claudius of bringing him in to service his wife like a bull, and Claudius is not happy with this accusation.
Well, the interesting thing in this scene too is that there's part of you that wants them to figure everything out, but the thing is, because there's been an actual assassination attempt, there's no way. I mean, even if everybody figured out everything that was really happening, it's like he's committed this unforgivable act, which it just puts an extra weight on the whole scene.
Which Palis does. Palis, the advisor, we need to talk about them at a later point in this episode, but Palis says he has to die. And so, but what ends up happening is Claudius obviously doesn't believe it because he's blinded by Claudius is more blinded by love than Augustus was, but it's the same character flaw. It's the exact same character flaw. And Claudius is just a little bit more susceptible, I think, because he's never been the recipient of that kind of affection before. And so he brings in Messalina, who, number one, tells her mother, you have to verify everything I say. And the mother wilts and says, okay, basically. The mother's sort of basically a good person, but not a strong person. And goes
she's
along.
Utterly horrified when she realizes what's going on.
Yeah. But she just understands the reality that there's not much she can do in this situation. And so, she's like a lot of people in the show. She just bends with it. And so Messalina appears before Appius Solanus, and he repeats what he said to Claudius. And then it's just like an act. It's a performance. And Appius Solanus even says something like that should be enshrined in drama. But she says, oh, Solanus, how could you? And then she says, he is sick with love for me, my dear. And she goes on and says that, it's basically that he had made some threat to kill Claudius in a jealous rage, but she didn't think it was real. And when they ask her mother, she says, yes, he's blind. He's maddened by love for her or something. And that's when Palis says he has to die. And then Messalina freaks out because she's really in love with this guy. And, and so it all, the plan just totally blows up in her face. That is another interesting aspect of it, because comparing her to Livia, it's not like her plan was to get Appius executed. That was not her plan at all. It was just such a everything goes wrong in every direction with this whole plan of hers. And with Claudius, I think she suspected that she would be able to persuade him, because she's like, no, just banish him. We don't need to kill him. And then Palis is like, no, he has to die. And Claudius, it's like the one area where Claudius probably cannot be persuaded by Messalina in this like just very obvious matter of state where there's a clear outcome that has to emerge from this. And Claudius even says the heart cannot rule the head in these matters, which is a little bit ironic given what's going on. But they take Solanus away to be killed. And Messalina just gives him the worst death stare of all time. It's just a pouty, rage-filled expression that is completely unhinged. It's not like if with Livia you at least had a sense that it would all be rational and play out in a reasonable way. With Messalina, you realize it's just this well of deep emotion that is going to play out, and it's very alarming when you see that. The first time I ever saw the show, I don't think I even noticed it, but then in hindsight, when you know what's coming down the road and you see that look on her face, it explains everything that unfolds in the next.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I mean that is her, I guess, flaw is because I mean, Livia never struck me as the type to go to a lot of trouble to arrange some affair with somebody. But if she were, and she were rebuffed, she would take it coolly, whereas Messalina, when she's rebuffed, she just goes insane, which is what comes up with all these crazy stories she's telling, which is what leads to the assassination attempt. I mean, she set that in motion with her with just her hateful reaction to being rebuffed.
You know who she reminds me of is Livilla, probably. She's closer to Livilla.
Yes.
In that, like, even the way that she gets angry and sort of the things that seem to motivate her, and in some ways it makes her a little more sympathetic than Livia, because she's at least motivated by genuine love for this guy. Do you know what I mean? It's now she's crazy and she behaves in a crazed way around all that, but it's like a genuine emotion that's human. And Livia was kind of above. I don't know if
the emotion I'd call is quite love, but yeah, I mean,
it's obsession. It's obsession. It's obsession. But I mean, it's the kind of emotion that Livia would never have even deemed worthy of her.
No, exactly. That's why she never would have made that move in the first place. But if she did make that move, she wouldn't have lost control when she was talking to the guy. And I mean,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was done.
No, because if people who haven't seen the episode, the expression on Messalina's face when all this is happening is just, I can't even describe it. It's like water watching ice shatter. It's this like she just is shaking and just has this mad look in her eye, and all of her anger just floods her body. She's just and it's sort of, it's one of these like, there's a moment in this episode where you realize the effect power has had on Claudius when he gets angry at Silanus, and this is a moment where you see the effect that power has on Messalina, and you almost wonder, well, how bad would she really be if she was just a normal Roman woman who wasn't wielding all this power? Is this because she's crazed and evil, or is it just that, are we just witnessing what power does to people when they have these flaws that are allowed to just go completely off the rails because anything and everything they want happens?
And as you mentioned, she's really young too. It's like getting all that power at that age. It's like, it's the classic child star syndrome. It's like people that young are not supposed to be in a position of power. It's dangerous.
And ultimately, it really is Claudius's fault, because, I mean, not that she's blameless, sure, but it's his fault that, like, he's allowing all this to happen, and it's becoming this thing that sets the tone of all of the bad stuff that follows in his reign. Like a guy, like, again, we should talk about Pallas and Narcissus, because they're two very important characters that we see over the course of these 3 episodes. I think Narcissus might depart by the 3rd, but they're the 2 freemen who are like his advisors, basically, I think. And Pallas is like a sophist, and Narcissus is kind of more of a he seems to have the best interest of Rome in mind, but a guy like Pallas only thrives because of the situation with people like Messalina in the palace. Do you know what I mean? Like he's sort of sensing the loss of control that's going on, and he thrives in the chaos that creates, I think. And Narcissus is sort of a by the book, almost a nerdy type character who plays by the rules. There's this scene where they're talking about the harbor and the and the plans to, I forget what it was. There are plans that they don't want built because it's going to affect the price of corn, and they both have money in corn, and so, Pallas basically says, look, let's just exaggerate all the prices so that this thing doesn't get built, and then our investments will all be secure. And Narcissus says, well, somebody could construe that as is quite greedy. You know, people will want the prices of corn to be low so that they can eat. And he says, well, doesn't that just make for more greed? You know,
yeah, but more people wanting something is greedier than just enriching the few. Yeah. I mean, come on, that's just logic.
And it's just the perfect example of sophistry. And the way the guy delivers it is so smooth. Like, it's just so he's just so confident in his conclusion when he utters it, and the other guy is so baffled that I love the interplay between these two characters, and I love the two points of view that they represent in the series.
It's a good scene because it sets up Claudius. He just sees through the whole thing. It's just like it's a great moment for him where you see, oh, he's really competent.
Yeah, no, that's where you really see he's got all the numbers figured out, and he basically he doesn't say that like he knows it's them, but he knows that people that are in corn are involved, and and they're like, and then he says, so give me some new estimates, and then he says, and we're going to have the corn suppliers pay for this whole thing, and his reasoning there is really solid. He basically says, look, I'm not going to investigate what is obviously like some kind of corruption going on around corn, and in exchange they're gonna pay for this project, and so it was quite perfect. And again, it would have been the moment, had Messalina not been mucking all this up, it would have been the moment where Solanus would have realized how competent Claudius was.
Yeah, I know. It's Solanus is just distracted and concerned with assassinating him rather than even paying attention. But yeah, it's a moment that should have worked very well. But it's a fantastic scene for that reason, and of course it's good because I feel it's nice you get a balance of Claudius in this. You get to see him being very competent before the following scene where you get to see him being completely fooled. So, without that, he would look much worse in this episode.
Yeah, no, I think we did get a very good balance with them. And again, it really works well in the overall series where they're not making any effort to conceal that they're connecting this to the reign of Augustus, and it's kind of got like a poetic rhyme to it that's nice, but also different. It's not the same stuff over and over again. It's different enough that it's equally entertaining. What did you think of the Greek doctor scene where Claudius goes to the doctor?
I like the Greek doctor scene. I like these little odd digressions the show takes from time to time. Kind of like the scene with the printer where Claudius goes to the printer. It's that kind of a scene. I can't think of anything the doctor scene actually added to the plot, but it just worked. It really added something to the show.
I feel like they insert one of these every episode or two, and I feel like the purpose of them is to help establish the world that Claudius lives in. Because him going to that printer, that's a really important scene just in terms of understanding what kind of world Claudius lives in. And you don't get that if he's always in the palace and always on the steps of the Senate or something, or always in the library. And I felt the same thing here. You got a sense, number one, of the difference, the cultural difference that the show is trying to present between Romans and Greeks, and how Claudius is expecting there to be prayers that he's supposed to say along with the medicine, and the Greek doctor is just very sort of much more logical in his approach to these things. And
he just picks a very common herb or something that he can take for it. It's like, here, that's all you need. That's it. He's not going to sell him some expensive novelty medicine or anything.
And I love his arrogance. He sits down in the chair, and Claudius is trying to sit down in it, and he's at the if he had done this with Caligula, he would have been dead in 2 seconds. And I get the impression that this doctor would have behaved that way regardless of which emperor he was appearing before.
He would have, yeah. It's hard to say how he would have interacted with Caligula. Because he might have ended up dead, or Caligula might have been so so amazed at this that it might have entertained him.
Yeah,
I could see it going either way.
Yeah, Caligula really could go either way in that respect. But it just is. It was just a very charming scene, and I thought that it worked quite nicely. So I mean, obviously, we haven't gotten to the apex of the Messalina plot yet. So answer this question with that in mind. But what? Who would you rather be married to? Would you rather be married to Messalina or to Livia? Like in terms of thinking of your own personal safety, not in terms of who would be a better wife, but like who's more of a danger to you as a protagonist, Messalina or Livia?
I think Messalina's the bigger danger because she's not operating from reason. I mean, Augustus got himself killed because he saw what Livia was up to, didn't like it, and he rejected her and was shutting her out. I mean, obviously, Augustus could have been more clever in the way he shut her out. He shut her out, but he didn't in any way reduce her power in the process, which is what got him killed. With Messalina, I don't know that there's any sure way. I mean, if she's out to murder you, it might be for some reason you could never understand, or you might never know it. Whereas, Livia would be the safer choice.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Livia. I would feel bad if Messalina killed me. I'd feel less bad if Livia killed me. Do you know what I mean? In that final moment, it's at least like being done in by a master chess player. Do you know what I mean?
No shame in getting beaten by the best.
But if Messalina kills you, it's more like somebody impaled you with the king in a tantrum and flipped over the board. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's an unfair kill. So, but yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts on the show before we wrap it up?
I gotten all my major points out. Yeah, unless you got any more talking points, I think I'm done.
I mean, the only thing I have to comment on is just how the actors are aging in this show. The makeup's not always 100% convincing, but the actors, I find, are incredibly convincing in terms of I feel like sad at how old Claudius looks, even though the actor's quite young at this point in his life. Do you know what I mean?
I know he's actually old now. But I agree. The aging in this show is fantastic, and the makeup. I give the makeup a big pass from the standpoint that this show was never meant to be watched in high definition. It was a TV show from the 70s. Yeah. It's like we should be watching it on a cathode ray tube television with rabbit ears. That's how we should be watching it.
Yeah.
It should not just be low resolution. It should be a fuzzy reception you need to adjust every now and then.
I mean, even Lord of the Rings wasn't really meant to be watched in high definitions. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's a high definition is a true double-edged sword when it comes to movies, and it can really strip it of that mist that you need between the viewer and what's going on the screen, and I would agree with you about the makeup. Also, it's like a BBC drama, right? So it's not exactly it's not meant to be in the mid-70s. So I think the makeup is quite good for the time. It's just that you can see through the makeup, but the performances, I find, hold up really well despite that.
I suspect, too, that like a lot of the makeup people that worked on this, London being a big theater city, they may be, if you had the same makeup on a stage, if you were going and seeing a live play, this would be fantastic makeup if you're sitting in the audience watching these people on a stage.
Well, and apparently the makeup was very uncomfortable for the actors, from what I get.
I bet. It's pretty much like doing one of those science fiction shows as far as the level of makeup they have to wear. But I mean, if we're talking about aging of actors too, I have to jump back to Tiberius. I'm unfortunately completely blanking on the actor's name that played Tiberius, but the the aging of his character over the course of the show was incredible. That's something that leapt out at me this time watching it that I didn't appreciate as much on previous views. But his kind of character arc as he ages was brilliant.
And and the name of the actor is George Baker. But I would agree with you.
Yes.
He does a very excellent job. Even that final scene where he's supposed to have had a stroke, he's really on point when he's asking for his beef. And I think everybody does a good job with it. I can't think of an actor who really drops the ball with the aging. Herod did a good job. I should probably call them by the name of the actor. I think his name is James Faulkner, the guy who plays Herod. And Derek Jacobi, they all, did excellent jobs. But in this episode, I was noticing it, I think, because there's like really only two people left now from that period, and so you're really paying a lot of attention to them. And in that scene where it's just Herod and Claudius, like Herod, the guy who plays Herod is a really young guy. Like when he appears early in the show, he's like a young, vibrant person, and here he just you feel the weight of age on him, and some of it's the costuming and the beard, but a lot of it is just the way he
performance.
carries.
He is really bringing something there. And I mean, the scenes with Herod and Claudius are fantastic in this episode. I mean, you really feel that they are these lifelong friends. I mean, that's another thing. Along with the aging of the people, the aging of the relationships in the show is a very, very, very well performed thing.
No, he's a great character. I mean, he's possibly one of the best characters in the show. Like, he's the only reason he isn't is because there are so many good villains in the series, and villains always get the top billing in my mind. But he's the character that you so want him to stay to the end, and you so want what ends up happening with him. You so don't want to happen. I still like the way that they resolve it, but you really wish that Herod would stay by his side this whole episode or the whole show. And I think that speaks volumes about the quality of the show, because I don't I am a pretty cynical person. I think I don't tend to really get that deeply connected to the characters in a TV show, and this show does a good job of getting you to care about the characters and really rooting for them. And again, I think it's because it does this thing that's very hard to do, which is it's very character driven, it's very intimate, but it doesn't ever bore you. You're always interested, and so over the course of the series, you become an ally of Claudius, and you want to see him succeed. And it's like a genuine thing. It's not, he's the protagonist, so I want him to succeed. It's no, I like this guy. I really like this guy, and I want him to see it through well to the end. And so I think that's one of the things that really helps you make the show work like that. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's we got 2 episodes left, so it's kind of sad. I'm kind of glad that we missed a few episodes, because not episodes of Claudius, but we missed a few of our episodes. So we've kind of had to lay it out longer, and it's staggered.
It's grown a bit. I ended up watching this episode twice too, because we were supposed to do it at an earlier date, and I watched again, and I was like, I better give this one more watch. It's been so long now.
I did too.
I got to savor this episode a little more.
And I have to say, I'm really looking forward to next episode. It's kind of a wild episode. It sort of harkens a little bit back to the Caligula days, I think. But again, it's just, I don't know. People will see when we talk about it. But again, if you haven't seen Claudius, number one, I don't think anybody who hasn't would be listening this deep into the podcast. But
that would be strange. Yeah.
But
our unless you think our telling the story to you was better than the actual show, which I would think you were insane. But
yeah, if you're a total weirdo and you haven't seen Claudius yet, but you're somehow still listening to us, go check it out on on Amazon. They have it streaming there. You have to.
No,
you would have to buy.
Acorn has it.
Acorn has it, but you can buy the episodes.
Oh, you can buy. I'm sorry. Yeah. If you want to watch it streaming, like as a subscription service, it's on Acorn. But you can also.
Yeah, so you will have to purchase the episodes, and normally we try to do things that are only available for streaming so that people can watch them. But this is something where I think it's really worth the purchase. Buy one episode. Buy one episode, and then...
Here's the advice that people listening can actually use. If you're listening to this and you haven't watched it in a long time, just watch it again. You will not regret giving this another fresh viewing, because you'll see more stuff in it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So all right, so we're gonna head out, and people should check out the Long Road to Gallantry discussion that we had last night. We watched a Karahoy movie, and next week on Wuxia Weekend we are gonna do Black Magic, which is so the whole month the theme is Black Magic. We're gonna do like all kinds of scary stuff for Halloween month. And Black Magic, it's not wuxia, obviously. It's set in a modern period. It's kind of a it's like a horror movie, but it's a really good horror movie, and it stars a lot of great actors who are known for wuxia roles, and it's a Shaw Brothers film. So we're gonna do that, and then we're probably gonna follow it up with Black Magic 2. We wanted to do Boxer's Omen this month, and we wanted to do Killer Snakes, and unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do those because they're not available on streaming, and it was going to be too expensive for us to get copies for everybody. So instead, we're going to do some other films. Hopefully down the road, we'll be able to get to those movies, because I would like to. So if you want to see us talk about movies like that, go to our Patreon page and support us, and that'll help us to cover the costs of getting these kinds of films for everybody. So, all right, we will let you go, and we will talk to you later.